Hi everybody, welcome back to Crime and Cocktails. Today we're going to talk about a very unique and a very bizarre case, but let's start off with the drink. I'm like dropping everything over here. Today we're going to make a vodka soda because we're gonna need one for this case. And I'm gonna make it a little more unique. So let's start off with my homemade muddler. I think that's what it's called, a muddler. I'm going to throw in some cucumber, some mint, muddle that. I know it's not summer anymore, but I figured I would make one last drink because it's still a little hot out here. And then probably my next video, I'm gonna start making some fun fall drinks. Obviously, it doesn't have to be perfect because, once again, I am not a bartender. So, kind of just going with it. Put that at the bottom. Kind of crush that up a little bit so the juices come out. Now I'm going to take my vodka and pour that. I did a lot of vodka, didn't I? Oh well, here we go. Instead of ice, I'm actually going to put some frozen strawberries in here. So we're making a cucumber, mint, strawberry, lemonade, vodka soda. It's basically a nice end of summer drink, beginning fall. I know we're technically in fall right now, but I'm making a last summer refreshing drink. All right, got my strawberries in there, frozen strawberries for the ice part of the drink. And this is the only lemonade that Jared could find at the store. This gigantic thing. I need to do this off camera because I am for sure going to spill. I usually make my own lemonade for the drinks, or I get, Simply lemonade. But this is all Jared could find at the store. I honestly don't even think I'm going to use, I think the next drink is going to have lemonade in it, but I'm not like a big lemonade person, you know? So it was at a half and now it's, almost full. Mix that up. I hope this tastes good because I don't have any backup options. Now we're gonna top that off with either sparkling water or tonic water. I'm using tonic water, but if you want to add like some extra flavor, you could get a flavored sparkling water. I'm just gonna pour that right on top. So we have that for the aesthetic purpose. Put some cucumber on the side. I don't even know if I need a mint leaf as a decoration because it's kind of floating in there already. Okay, wish me luck because I don't know how I did on this. I think I might have poured a little too much vodka. Oh, that's really good. I'm actually really surprised, and I know there's too much vodka in this, and I'm not usually a vodka girl, but it's really good. And before anyone says anything, I know my space buns are uneven. It's the first time I've done this hairstyle today, and it's a mix between Star Wars Princess Leia and that guy off Little Nicky that's in hell. That's the inappropriate version, and I just called myself out. But I'm just going with it. It's just for one video. And if I don't like it after this, I just won't do it again. Today we're talking about, like I said, a very unique, bizarre case. It includes a home invasion, an abduction, sexual violence, and a lack of efforts from police investigators. So today I'm talking about the real life Gone Girl. I love the movie, love the book. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but if you haven't seen it, here is a spoiler alert. So this movie is about a woman who stages her own abduction murder. She wants the police to blame her husband. So in the movie, he's cheating on her, and she spends months on meticulous planning in order for him to ultimately end up in jail. and take the blame for that crime. But at the end of the movie, she returns home safe and sound. So the reason why this case is called the Gone Girl case is because about a year later is when these events occurred that I'm going to tell you about. So that Gone Girl movie was really fresh in everyone's mind about a woman that would stage her own abduction/murder. So let's get into this story today. It begins in Vallejo, California, which is just outside of San Francisco, and the victims that we're going to talk about today lived on Mare Island. Mare Island was a former naval base, and it began building new neighborhoods for its future residents. It was said to be a pretty quiet area. This is where Aaron Quinn chose to purchase a home and where he wanted to spend his life, get married, have kids. Aaron Quinn, he was a physical therapist and he was actually engaged, but unfortunately the engagement ended because his fiance was cheating on him. It wasn't long after that he met Denise Huskins. Denise Huskins was originally from Southern California, but she started a residency and moved up north to the same department as Aaron Quinn. So they were both physical therapists. Aaron and Denise first met and there was an immediate attraction, but they didn't date right away. They were friends for a little while, but after an event at work where, they had some drinks and got to talking, they did start dating. Aaron still went through that recent breakup. So, he was still getting over that while dating someone new. This is an important note to make. Denise actually looked similar to Aaron's ex. His family noticed that. Her family noticed that. He really did adore Denise, but she could see that he was still struggling with lingering feelings with his ex-fiance. It was about 7 months after Denise and Aaron started dating. She noticed on his phone that he was texting his ex and saying he wanted to work things out and get back together with her. This is when Denise was like, I need to take a step back. You need to figure out, Aaron, what you want. And so they did just that, and they spent a few weeks apart, but deep down Denise knew that Aaron was a great guy. He was just struggling, understandably, and likewise Aaron wanted Denise back. He wanted to move on from his past and move forward with someone like Denise. So on March 22nd, 2015, Aaron invited Denise over to his place so they could talk about the relationship and how to move forward. They stayed up till about midnight, having pizza, some alcoholic beverages. At the end of the night, they realized they did want to give this a second chance and it was worth working for. They went to bed about midnight and, the night ended on a good note. This was a new chapter for them in a really positive way, but just a few hours later, it would be a new beginning in a negative way as well. All right, let's get ready for this. This is really refreshing. I would say it's similar to a mojito, which is actually another one of my favorite drinks. So at 3 a.m., the couple was awoken by a white light in their face, which appeared to be a flashlight. And they saw small red laser lights scanning the walls up and down, scanning their bodies. And then they heard a man's voice say, "Wake up, this is a robbery. We are not going to hurt you. This is for financial purposes." It took them a while to wake up, but then I think they were just both in shock. They didn't immediately know what to do right away, but the man ordered Denise to tie Aaron up, and then after that, they did tie her up as well. They moved the couple to a closet where they had goggles put on them that were covered with black duct tape, and headphones were placed over their ears with instructions. Denise did mention that she didn't look at the intruders' faces at all. She didn't want to give them any kind of motive to harm her, so she kept her head down, and while she was looking down, walking towards the closet, realized that there were not just one pair of feet, but there were 2 or 3 pairs of feet. So this was not, just a random spur of the moment man coming in their house to rob them. This was something bigger. This was going to be a whole planned organization, something that they probably planned for a very long time. So what they could hear in their headphones were some instructions. And first was to take a liquid sedative, and if they refused in any way, the sedative was going to be injected. Then they separated the two to separate rooms, and they asked for Aaron's banking account information, social security number, all his passwords, credit card information. Like, they were very sophisticated down to every single detail. If either of the two were to give any sort of false information, the intruders threatened to either cut their partner or to give them an electric shock. So in the midst of all this chaos, the intruders realize something. They have the wrong person. One of the men goes up to Aaron and he says, "Does your girlfriend look like your ex?" And Aaron says yes. And so they realize they weren't there for Denise Huskins and Aaron. They were there for Aaron Quinn and his ex-fiance. It was at this moment they decided they were going to take Denise to a separate location for 48 hours and hold her for ransom. So this actually worked out to the criminal's advantage, because they could use Denise as a way to get Aaron to keep following instructions, or they would, at the end of the day, harm her. The men take Aaron downstairs after Denise has left, and Aaron asks for a blanket. One of the men says, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize how cold it was in the house because we actually have wetsuits on." Like wetsuits, like you go scuba diving. So this is actually smart on their part, because there's no way they can leave any fibers, any, strands of hair or fingerprints. So Aaron realizes these are not amateurs. They left Aaron downstairs and eventually left the home, and Aaron fought really hard to stay awake, but the sedative was just too strong. He woke up a couple hours later when his alarm for work went off. He called in, said he wouldn't be there that day, and then he fell back asleep. He finally woke up late afternoon at about 11 a.m. So when he officially wakes up, his mind is just racing. He's like, what do I do? They told me not to call the police, but they did mention to keep his phone on and check his email, because they would contact him later that day for further instructions. Denise's life depended on it. When he woke up, he realized there was a camera in his house that was meant to watch his every move, and there was red tape placed all around different areas of the house showing the boundaries that he had to stay in. He was told that if he were to call the police, that Denise would be harmed. He was also told to transfer 2 payments of $8,500. If anyone called him for suspicious activity, he was told to tell them that he was buying a jet ski. He also texted Denise's work from her phone saying that she would not be coming in that day either. So at this point, he has no idea what to do. If he, calls 911, he's essentially risking his girlfriend's life. What he decides to do is call his brother, who is an FBI agent. So his brother says, as any FBI agent would say, always call the police, because every criminal is going to say not to call 911, but that is exactly what you have to do. So Aaron goes back and forth thinking about this for a while, and he ultimately does end up calling 911. When they get to his house, police feel a little suspicious towards Aaron. There's a few reasons why. So from the police's point of view, this is a classic domestic violence murder case. So first they see Aaron's car is missing, and not only is his car missing, but they said he has waited hours to call the police since Denise's abduction. Then they hear about the issues that have been very recent in their relationship. Aaron was also the last person to see her alive at that point. And, they hear this elaborate story about, swim goggles and men in wetsuits. At this point, they're not buying it. They're like, this guy's nuts. So Aaron heads down to the police station. They asked for Aaron's clothes for evidence. In return, they gave him a plain white t-shirt and prison pants. So they literally interviewed Aaron in a prison outfit, which is just beyond comprehension to me. This poor man. He was grilled for about 18 hours. Detective on the case named Detective Mustard. Detective Mustard, he questioned Aaron And he basically said, I know you did it. You killed her. You murdered her. Where is her body? So ABC's 2020 points out that at this time, not only was Gone Girl a movie that had just been released the year prior, but a case that was in everyone's mind was the Laci Peterson case, where her husband actually murdered her and her unborn child because he was in love with another woman. Aaron has no luck here. He has the Gone Girl movie that just came out and the horrible murder of Laci Peterson. So after Aaron keeps telling them that he had nothing to do with this, he would never harm Denise, they decided to give him a lie detector test. And after this lie detector test, they tell him he failed miserably. So at this point, if Denise is never found and Aaron ends up going to trial, he probably has no chance, because they did mention that they could charge him for murder without a body. As my favorite podcast, Crime Junkies, say, never ever take a lie detector test. Even if you're innocent, just don't do it. And this is a case to give you reason as to why you should not take a lie detector test. Detective Mustard even tries going to Aaron's brother, knowing that he's an FBI agent, and getting his brother to come into the room to try to get some sort of information out of Aaron. But when his brother does enter the room, Aaron is, he thinks he's going crazy, but deep down he knows he could not do anything like that to Denise. But after being interrogated for 18 hours, you start to question yourself. His brother ends up getting Aaron a lawyer. And the next day, after this whole abduction went down, something pretty incredible happens. Henry Lee from the San Francisco Chronicle receives a message through Aaron's email, and this message is from Denise herself. It says that she's alive, she's well, and there is some audio attached to the email, prove that this is not a pre-recorded message. She mentions her first concert she ever went to was Blink-182, and she shares some current news from that day, such as the German airliner that crashed into the French Alps. So Aaron and Denise's dad listen to this audio and they confirm that this is Denise herself. But the police still aren't buying it. Aaron does mention to Detective Mustard that the men said they were going to contact him later that day and that he needed to keep his phone on him. But the detective completely ignored Aaron. And unfortunately, at 9 p.m. the day after Denise's abduction, they missed calls from the intruders. So after this message from Denise comes in, they check Aaron's phone, and it had actually been on airplane mode the entire time it was in police custody. So the entire time that Aaron was being questioned, the phone was off. Okay, why did they turn the phone off? Why did they put it on airplane mode? This is because they already thought Aaron was guilty. They, in their mind, already labeled him a murderer. They did not think Denise was alive. So what point would they have to keep the cell phone on in their minds? So at this point, the police contact AT&T with a search warrant, and they realize that the phone which contacted Aaron's cell phone was purchased from a Target on March 2nd. They got that surveillance footage and they see a man, fair skin, dark clothing. This man was clearly not Aaron in the video. The calls were made 3 hours away in South Lake Tahoe, proving that Aaron possibly couldn't have been 3 hours away and being interrogated at the same time. But, they're still not buying it. They think maybe Aaron had an accomplice of some sort. Essentially, the call proves nothing. So now it's March 25th, 2015, 2 days after this traumatic ordeal happened to Aaron and Denise. Something incredible happens. Denise is dropped off in Huntington Beach on a street right by her parents' house. She's giving all the items that the men had taken with her when they abducted her. So her purse, an overnight bag, a pair of sunglasses, and she was also wearing some shoes that were too big on her. Denise at this point was probably so relieved to be alive, so, grateful that the men kept their word that they were going to return her after 48 hours, even though the ransom hadn't been paid. She walks to her parents' house And obviously they're not home because they're in Vallejo, looking for her. So she goes to a gardener. She asks to use his phone to call her dad. And then she calls the police. And when they get there, something happened that she would not expect. Denise seems to be a very calm personality. So when police came to question her in her first interview, which was about an hour long, she stayed calm the entire time and she was very happy to give them information. Her story lined up with Aaron's. Everything, with the red lights, the stun guns, the swim goggles with the duct tape, everything. She said despite everything, the men did treat her pretty well for the last 48 hours. And she mentions that when she got in the trunk of Aaron's car, they drove and she was switched to a second car. And then she reached her final destination sometime after that. She says during the 48 hours that she was captured, she was drugged the entire time. She was placed in a room with just a queen-size bed and a dresser. They asked if the men had sexually harmed her in any way, and she says no. She said there was another man with her in the room majority of the time, but she never saw his face. So she's on a plane back to Vallejo, which is about 400 miles north from Huntington Beach. While she's on that plane, Detective Mustard goes to the lawyer and he says, "We should offer immunity for whoever admits that this is a hoax first." Her Aaron, who's going to admit that it's a hoax first. This is crazy because at this point, Denise hasn't even talked to the Vallejo Police Department. Like, they haven't heard her story. She hasn't shared her story, and they're already saying that she's a liar. Also, while she's on the plane, Detective Mustard decides to interview Denise's parents. And they ask her, is there anything about her past? Does she have a troubled past? Is there anything that's happened? And her mom, Jane, does mention that when she was younger and they went on a family camping trip, that Denise was molested. And you want to know what Detective Mustard, how he replied? Hold on. Detective Mustard says that most victims that go through that sort of trauma in their childhood, they want to relive it when they're older for the thrill. Oh my gosh, I'm literally about to chug this drink. He's saying that Denise made this all up because she wanted to go back to that time in her childhood when she was molested. Like, no, she's not doing it for the thrill of it. Okay. After the fact, Detective Mustard denies making this statement, but as you'll see, he denies a lot of statements throughout this case. So it just baffles me how insensitive the police are during this time, especially before talking to Denise herself. Fortunately, Denise's lawyer, he wasn't listening to those policemen. He was going to hear Denise for herself. And as he was listening to her, he realized that her feelings were legitimate, they were sincere, and her story was consistent the entire time. Having her lawyer on her side, really on her side, she decided to confide in him, and she mentioned that there were two things she did not tell the police because she was afraid and because she knew the men that abducted her were still out there. So she tells them two things. One, the man that abducted her mentioned that he was once in the military, he was a former Marine, and two, that they had raped her. And not only did they do that once, the first time they did it, they wanted to videotape it and use it as some sort of blackmail. And, they're watching the video footage over of them assaulting her. And they say, this doesn't look legit. You don't look like you're enjoying it. So we need to redo this. And you need to act like you're enjoying it, which is just unbelievable. So she had to do that all over again. And I couldn't even imagine, they told Denise to do it like you would do it with your boyfriend. Act like Aaron is here. So they threatened that if she were to tell anybody about what had happened to her during those 48 hours, they were going to put that video all over the internet, which, it would potentially hurt Denise's case because people are saying that she made all this up. So if there's video footage of her out there, looking like she's enjoying being assaulted by these men, that's not going to help her. But also at the same time, Denise does say that the man that assaulted her, he seemed remorseful. But that poor girl, she had to go through this not just once in her life, but multiple times. One of the absolute worst things I've heard about this case was she mentions that she was assaulted. So her lawyer wants to go get her a rape kit, an exam. And the police are just like, we'll deal with that tomorrow. Just tell her to sleep in her clothes for tonight and to not take a shower. So Denise is told to not shower and sleep with these possible, fibers and this DNA inside of her. And she just has to wait it out until the police are ready. Like, I've never, ever, ever heard that before. Even all of this talk about the movie Gone Girl got Aaron questioning himself if Denise was lying, which obviously he regrets today. But, at this point he was interrogated. He's heard so many rumors that he doesn't really know what to believe. And it was also because at this point, the couple had not seen each other. They were still separated. Then Vallejo PD decides to set up a press conference, and their spokesperson said that these people will not be treated as victims, and we wasted valuable resources. They even go as far as to saying that Aaron and Denise, they owed the public an apology. I don't think I've ever heard of a victim being told to give the public an apology before their side of the story was even heard. Ultimately, this affected their personal lives, their jobs, and people on the internet just sending them these intense, horrible messages. And don't forget, you guys, this is all just in the span of a few days. So on March 26, 2015, just 3 days after this horrible incident occurred, the San Francisco Chronicles receives another message. And this time, it's from the kidnappers themselves. So now this is a celebratory sip. It seemed that whoever sent this message was offended that the media was calling all of this a hoax, and they wanted the credit. They even called themselves Ocean's 11's criminals. So in this email, they gave specific details, photos of where Denise was held captive for those 48 hours. They also included photos of items that were included in the robbery, such as the goggles and the duct tape that Aaron and Denise had told the police. Now, this caused the police to, raise their eyebrows a little bit, but it wasn't until another home invasion occurred for the investigation to really begin. I don't know why it took a whole nother robbery for them to simply just begin looking into other possibilities of this case, but yeah, that's a sad truth. So on June 5th, 2015, just a few months after Aaron and Denise had gone through their traumatic experience, another couple in Dublin, California were awoken in the middle of the night with the same terror that Denise and Aaron had encountered. Couple woke up, with the flashlight and the red lights in their face. But fortunately, this night went completely different. So the husband is fighting off this man, and the husband gets hit in the head with a very heavy object, which I believe was a flashlight. The wife was able to get away and hide to call 911. So 911 had arrived, and the intruder, he fled, but he left behind something. A cell phone. Now this is like a movie, but it's even crazier because it's real life. So the police checked the phone, and the phone was registered to a woman who essentially said it was her son's cell phone and he had reported it missing. What was the son's name? Matthew Muller. They learned that Matthew Muller was a Marine, just like Denise had stated. In the late 1990s. He had many academic accomplishments and ended up at Harvard Law School. He got married. So why would a man with such high achievements decide to invade homes, kidnap a woman, and assault her? When they located Matthew Muller in his mountain home, he didn't try to fight the police in any way. He knew what they were there for, so he allowed them to handcuff him. So Misty Caruso, I honestly really apologize. That's what happens with Crime and Cocktails. I'm not going to be able to pronounce her last name, but she is a huge part of this story. She was the detective on the Dublin, California case with the wife and the husband that fought off the intruders. She was able to search Matthew Muller's home. Her and her team found all the items that were used for an ideal home robbery, along with water guns that looked like real guns, stun guns, laptops, and duct tape that had a strand of blonde hair attached to it. Now remember, Misty and her team had no idea about the Vallejo case. They were just focusing on this home invasion in Dublin, but neither the husband or the wife had blonde hair. So where did this come from? So she puts Matthew Muller's name into her database and she notices he is a suspect in a few crimes outside of Vallejo, California. They're all break-ins and threats of raping women that were zip-tied and had taped goggles on. Misty, the detective, thank God for her. She actually Googled the Vallejo case that was deemed a hoax. If she had never decided to Google this case to begin with, if she had never put in that effort, who knows if the victims would have gotten any kind of justice at all. You know, she's looking at the police conference, she's researching everything about the case, and she finds it absolutely absurd, as any normal human being would. So this is when she decides to contact Vallejo PD herself, and she tries multiple times with no reply. So she goes to the FBI and she says, you know, I'm looking over this case that you guys, deemed a hoax. And they say, oh, we didn't call it a hoax. The Vallejo PD did. And at this point, it's like, he said, she said shit, Finally, a representative from the Vallejo PD and 2 FBI agents go to Dublin's department and they look at all the evidence. They see Aaron's laptop and the hair and the duct tape, which matched Denise's hair. At this point, they are shook, as they should be. For 3 months, these victims had to go through, interrogation, feelings of guilt, blame, shame, PTSD, disbelief. I mean, their worlds were absolutely turned upside down. This was finally a chance to have some sort of redemption, have some sort of upside, I mean, we have the husband in the Dublin home invasion that fought the intruder off, that led to him dropping his cell phone. We had the wife that was able to get away to call 911. We had Misty, the detective, that went out of her way to pursue this Gone Girl case despite everyone else's lack of effort. But still, the Vallejo PD is so stubborn, and I think they were probably embarrassed. During a media interview, when asked if they owed the victims an apology, they stated, "We're still investigating." I hate when people don't take any kind of accountability. So in 2016, at the age of 44, Matthew Muller pleaded guilty to kidnapping, and he currently is facing state charges of rape, burglary, and false imprisonment. However, in November 2020, just last year, less than a year ago actually, he was found mentally incompetent to stand trial and is now at the Solano County Jail Competency Treatment Center, which makes no sense because I believe he represented himself, so he's not incompetent. Even though Muller pled guilty, Denise still continued to release harassment on the internet. It's sad, once a rumor begins about you, it sticks forever. So there are still probably people out there that believe Denise and Aaron made this whole thing up, even though there's evidence to prove that they did not make this up. This was not their intention. Ultimately, Aaron Quinn and Denise Huskins did not orchestrate this whole thing. It was a very unfortunate event that happened to them. She and Quinn decided to sue the city of Vallejo for defamation in 2018, and they won a $2.5 million settlement. Vallejo has a new police chief. His name is Shawnee Williams. And after 6 years, Denise and Aaron receive a public apology, not from the police chief at the time, but with the new police chief, which I guess is better than nothing. I'm going to read the quote from Shawnee Williams. He says, the city's police chief, he wrote in a statement to People, "What happened to Miss Huskins and Mr. Quinn was horrific and evil. As the new chief of police, I am committed to making sure survivors are given compassionate service with dignity and respect. Although I was not chief in 2015 when this incident occurred, I would like to extend my deepest apology to Miss Huskins and Mr. Quinn and how they were treated during this ordeal." Now, in my opinion, that was extremely kind of him. That was something that a new police chief wouldn't necessarily have to do. There was no pressure on him to do that. But I mean, it would be nice for the person back then, you know, to have done something about it. End of the day, they don't really care about an apology at this point. Like, they lost that chance. They really want the Vallejo PD to do better. They apparently have a very bad track record, so they just want to see them do better, and they don't want this to happen to any other victims in the future. They don't want victims to be suspects. They want Vallejo PD to give people a chance to, you know, explore all avenues. Denise also mentioned that during those days in captivity, Matthew Mueller claims to be part of a larger criminal organization. There were obviously more people in the room, so it's kind of scary to think that they are still out there. Yes, Matthew Mueller was captured, but he didn't act alone. Despite the events that these two endured, the couple has managed to make peace with their past and finally find a happy ending. Aaron Quinn and Denise Huskins eventually married in 2018, and they are now parents to a little girl named Olivia. They also wrote a book called Victim F: From Crime Victims to Suspects to Survivors. And about this book, Aaron tells People magazine, "There are extraordinary facts within our story, what happened to us. But dealing with trauma isn't unique. We want to share our story and help other people to let them know they're not alone. We've always helped people at an individual level. This is an opportunity to help people on a larger scale." I would encourage everyone to go buy their book. Reading about what they actually went through down to every little detail, that's a way we can support them, and that's a way we can be there for them. And make sure to check out that book. I'm going to order it myself, or I was thinking about asking for a Christmas present. If you guys want to order their book, I will put it in the description below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for ignoring my hair if it was distracting you. So I hope you guys enjoy learning about these cases. I was instantly intrigued. I remember seeing it on TV. The book just came out recently, and that's a way we can all support them. I mean, to go through something traumatic and for people at the end of the day to blame you, not believe you, and say that you made all this up and that you essentially just want attention, it's just devastating. And it's something that they are lucky to have conquered and to have put in the past, and they are still trying to move forward. Like I said in my last video, I'm gonna leave a little bit left in each of my drinks so I'm not cheersing with an empty glass. I can't wait to see you guys next time. Maybe I won't do a true crime case next time. Maybe I'll switch it up a little bit. Yeah, let me know what you guys think, what you want to see, if you've heard of this case, if you want more in-depth information about it. So have a good day, stay safe, be aware of your surroundings, and trust your instinct. All right, cheers.